Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Rhino, and in today's video I have two replays for you in the ELC AMX 90, which is the tank that you would have received if you picked the correct team in the last week of the Tank Cup and also contributed enough during the event. It's a premium tier 6 French light tank. It's the AMX ELC BIS, which is now at tier 5, what it used to be at tier 6 with the 90mm gun, and it's a very nice light tank indeed, very powerful, kind of OP if you're an experienced player or you know what you're doing with this tank. You can definitely abuse the concealment and the vision mechanics within WoT game mode and completely obliterate your opponent. So I have timestamped for you both of the gameplays so you can skip forward to the gameplay if you don't want to watch the small review I'm going to do at the start of this video. I'm going to compare this to the tier 5 AMX ELC BIS, which can use a 90mm or a 75mm gun, show you what's changed when this has been put back in at tier 6. I'll talk about my command and equipment setup, and then we'll get talking about the gameplay. The last gameplay in particular broke the game for me. I was frozen in battle for absolutely ages, but it's an epic game and a very high damage number for a tier 6 tank, especially a tank with as poor DPM and a long reload as you have on this 90mm gun. So the ELC AMX 90 is here on the left with all of its stats. In the middle is the tier 5 AMX ELC BIS, and on the right is the AMX ELC BIS at tier 5 but using the 75mm. I'll go over the stats of the tank for you, I'll show you all of the strong points, and then we'll get talking about my command and equipment setup, then get quickly into the gameplay. So the ELC AMX 90, as it is a premium tank, you have a XP bonus of 50% and a silver bonus of 30%, so always very nice to earn silver in any premium tank, but especially when you're playing at tier 6. That's good for newer players, or if you are a more experienced player, it might be nice to go back there and seal club for a little bit, but you get some nice bonuses with this tank. In terms of its hit points, it's got 650 hit points and a view range of 360 meters, and the big one for me is that still concealment rating of 293.32 meters, which you can get down to a very good level indeed, as you've seen here on the right. That means this has excellent concealment, and if you boost that pretty poor view range with all of the things that are available to you with the command and equipment setup, you should be able to outspot pretty much everything you are going to come up against. In terms of the mobility, the ELC AMX 90 has an engine power of 250 horsepower, and it doesn't really matter too much that it's so low because you are such a small and very, very light tank in terms of its weight. However, if you do hit a tree stump or you go over some rough terrain, it can slow you down dramatically, but you do have an astronomical power to weight of 36.98, which is very nice for getting around the battlefield. You've got a great forward speed of 65 kilometers an hour, a reverse speed of 23 kilometers an hour. Your hull traverses at 42 degrees a second, which is very nice indeed. And your turret, so basically your gun, traverses at 46 degrees a second. The major downside is with this 90mm gun, and the same as the 90mm gun on the tier 5 AMX ELC BIS, is that you only have a gun traverse of -15 and 15 degrees, so that means you can only move your gun 15 degrees to the left and to the right, which means it's extremely limited at shooting on the move. You can't just lock onto someone behind you, run away and fire. You have to be facing your opponents when you fire, and that can be a nuisance if you're not used to it, but once you get the hang of it, that will be not too much of an issue. It's just a little bit annoying, especially when you're sort of feathering a target at mid to long ranges and it's moving. It can be very hard to hit it. In terms of the gun that's on the ELC AMX 90, I just keep forgetting which way round the ELC and the AMX is. You have a 90mm gun, as the name suggests, which fires AP, APCR and HE as its 3 ammunition choices. The speed isn't too bad for AP at 930 meters a second. On the premium APCR, you have 1,163 meters a second, so very nice for firing at those mid to long ranges, and the HE is the same as the AP at 930 meters a second. In terms of the penetration on the standard rounds, 170 for 240 alpha damage. And if you want that extra penetration, it does go up by quite a bit to 248mm of premium APCR penetration for the same 240 alpha damage. And if you're feeling lucky, you have 45mm of HE penetration, and that bumps your alpha damage to 320 damage. In terms of your aim time on this gun, it is a very long aim time for a small caliber gun at 2.7 seconds, and the accuracy isn't much better at 0.38, so you're going to want to do everything you can to put this down, and this is a tank that really benefits from having a commander that has at least sort of 7 to 9 skills. In terms of your rate of fire, it's 6.38, which means that you reload for 240 alpha damage in 9.4 seconds, and that means that you have a pretty low DPM of 1531. However, due to the concealment rating, and if you boost your view range up, you're going to be playing that passive and active scouting game, getting a lot of assistance and using your gun to finish off low health targets or shooting without getting spotted. And you can rack up the damage, as you'll see in the last gameplay, if it's a more drawn out game. In terms of your ammo capacity, you have 42 rounds. Your gun depression is only 5 degrees, so definitely watch out for that. And your gun elevation in typical French tank fashion is pretty poor at 13 degrees. So when you're going down slope and trying to shoot up, that can catch you out. And I'll be talking about everything about this tank during the gameplay. But that's it for all of the stats of this tank. What's it like compared to the AMX ELC BIS at tier 5? Well, as you can see, you do have a lot more hit points. You have 10 more than double the AMX ELC BIS, which only has 320, so more than double the AMX ELC BIS in terms of the hit points. The view range is exactly the same, as is the still concealment rating. In terms of the mobility, you can see that everything about this does get better. You have better engine power, a much better power to weight, better top forward speed, better reverse speed, better hold traverse, and the gun traverses a lot quicker as well. However, you do still have the same 15 degrees to the left and right of being able to move your gun on both of these tanks. However, if you choose to use the 75mm gun on the AMX ELC BIS, which is the second stock gun on this tank, you can move the gun everywhere on this tank, 180 degrees to the left and right, so 360 degrees in total. You can move this gun all around, and that can be a preferable choice for some players that don't like to have their gun sort of basically just fixed 15 degrees to the left and to the right. In terms of the AMX ELC BIS with the 75mm gun, you do have a slightly better power to weight ratio if you choose the 75mm gun due to the weight. However, everything else about the tank is the same apart from the gun, which we're going to get onto now. So in terms of the gun then, on the 90mm on the tier 5, you can see that it has the same speed or shell velocity as the tier 6 premium. However, you do lose quite a bit of penetration on your standard and especially on your premium rounds. The alpha damage is all the same. On the 75mm gun on that option for the AMX ELC BIS, you do have lower shell velocity, so 735 on your AP and HE rounds and 919 meters a second on your premium APCR. You do also have less penetration on all 3 rounds, and the alpha damage is 110 for your standard and premium and 175 for your HE, so much less penetration. But if you know where to fire and you prefer a gun that can go 360 degrees, that 75mm option might be the one for you. So in terms of this French premium tier 6, the aim time is 2.7 seconds, and that is better than the tier 5 by 0.2 seconds. However, the accuracy is the same. When you get this tank, you will have a boost in your rate of fire. Your reload and your DPM is approximately 500 damage per minute better on this premium tier 6. You also have more ammunition, and the gun depression and gun elevation stay the same. So it is just a up-tiered AMX ELC BIS, what it used to be at tier 6, and the ELC AMX 90 just feels a lot nicer to play than the AMX ELC BIS and what it used to be like. I used to love this tank. I was going for my free mark when they changed the tech tree, I believe, and it was put down to tier 5. However, it's nice to have this as a reward, and I definitely have enjoyed playing this tank. So that's enough talking about the stats there. Let's talk about my commander and equipment setup. Well, in terms of my equipment, I run advanced concealment, advanced optics, and I run the gun stabilizer. And in terms of my commander skills, I run Sixth Sense, Born Leader, rapid loading, steady aim, snapshot, run and gun, camouflage, expertise, muffled shot, and situational awareness. So in terms of my equipment, I'm boosting up my camo and my view range to be able to outspot my opponents, and gun stabilizer to improve that pretty poor accuracy. And in terms of my commander skills, Sixth Sense and Born Leader standard, rapid loading to improve the poor DPM, steady aim, snapshot, run and gun to improve the gun handling, 2 camouflage skills in camouflage, expertise, and muffled shot. Make sure not to take silent driving, as that's ineffective on light vehicles and it won't give you any bonus. And for my last commander skill, situational awareness, to work in conjunction with the advanced optics and boost up my view range. And if you have the same setup as me, you'll be looking at a view range of 461 meters and a still concealment rating of 223 meters. And when you use them in conjunction, you're going to be outspotting everything you come up against. And this tank is the ultimate sneaky light tank at tier 6, and it can be a lot of fun, and you can rack up a lot of assistance damage. In terms of the mobility, the only thing that changes with my setup is the gun moves a bit quicker, or the turret moves a bit quicker at 49.96 degrees a second, which is always very nice indeed for snapping those shells in. In terms of my commander and equipment setup and the DPM and the gun handling, well, I now have an aim time of 2.49 seconds, which isn't great, but it's definitely manageable, and when you're stationary, you can let that aim in. The accuracy has gone to a manageable level as well at 0.31, and my rate of fire has gone up to 7.25, which means I now reload for 240 alpha damage in 8.27 seconds, and my DPM is now 1740, so much better. And I've set this up in a very nice concealment way while also boosting my view range and my gun handling. So that's enough about talking of the ELC AMX 90. Let's head into those 2 games. So we're into the first gameplay here on Kasserine in the ELC AMX 90, and we are in a tier 7 matchup, so we do have to be a little bit careful about tanks that might have high alpha damage or good DPM, because our 650 hit points won't go very far indeed. You're always playing with fire in this tank if you're actively spotting. It's very flexible. You can actively spot and you can passively spot because of the view range, which you can boost up with your commander and equipment setup. And when you combine that with your concealment rating, which you've improved if you use a similar setup to me, as I will have shown you at the start of this video, it's very flexible for going forward, but also for sitting in a bush, not moving and spotting your targets that way. But how I like to play this tank is go forwards with the excellent mobility that you're seeing now. Actively spot at the start of the battle. If a light tank is following you in this tank, it's extremely awkward to fight it if you wanted to fight it one-on-one due to the poor DPM, but also because your gun only goes 15 degrees to the left and the right. The much better option is to leg it, use your mobility to bait the enemy light tanks into coming as close as possible to your teammates, and just fall back, bait them into the open, and hopefully they'll get taken out. And when the enemy light tanks get taken out at the start of the battle and you have the view range for the rest of the battle, you should be able to implement the flow of the battle, and you should be able to be the aggressor, getting the vision out for your team, and hopefully that will be the difference between you winning and losing. You can see here that at the start I'm still actively spotting. We've already picked up a little bit of assistance and got a couple shells in ourselves. We're using the small profile nature of this light tank to hide behind these ridge lines and just popping up, getting shots in where we can. At the moment, I'm not going to go forward and get a shell on this Hotchkiss until I find a nice clean shot like we did there, take him out of the game, and now we're going to fall back behind a ridge line and hide ourselves. You can see here that it's just so useful for hiding behind hard cover because you are so damn small and your concealment is so good. You're going to see me firing on top of this hill now, and I'm not going to be able to get spotted by a Tiger 1, which hasn't got the best view range, but it's by no means got poor view range. It's a tier 7 tank, and I'm firing at the moment. The only way that they could be able to see me is via the shell tracers, and we're getting lots of juicy assistance and we're getting some sneaky shells in. I would be more mindful of sitting in the same position as I'm firing, but because of the pretty poor gun handling that this tank has, I want to let it aim in as much as possible, and I want to have the best chance at getting this tier 7 heavy tank out of the game. Going to switch up now to my APCR rounds because our AP rounds was struggling against this Black Prince's armor, and at this distance, even APCR and that slight angle that he's got, I'm going to struggle a little bit, but I don't want to move from this position. I'm still keeping that vision on him, and hopefully we're going to be able to get the assistance of our teammates. Hopefully they're going to penetrate a couple of times and we're going to be able to take this tank out of the game. Unfortunately not, as he backs into cover, so we're going to pick our next target, and I'm just waiting for the next opportunity to advance a little bit further. I still feel like I might get a shell here, but if I feel like I'm not going to sort of fire within the next 5 to 10 seconds, is always a good idea just to move on and maybe push the tempo a little bit. We have lots of heavy tanks and a tank destroyer to the left of us to support us, so as we're going forward, you can see here the boosted view range that we have has definitely helped us out. You've got to stop here, aim for longer than you'd like to get that shell in, but it means we secured the kill on that Panzer 4S, and now we can use their mobility to dodge the shells from tanks that are shooting at us, and then we can get re-stealthed and then go out and get more vision. And you'll see in here that in a short space of time you can rack up quite a bit of assistance. It's only been 5 minutes in this battle. We are now up by a considerable amount, and now we can hopefully get some nice shells into this 3001D. He didn't spot us, and that's a typical theme with this tank. A lot of the times you just won't get spotted, even at kind of a crazy distance like 200 to 250 meters, maybe even less than that. They're just not going to be able to spot you because of the excellent concealment, and you've got to use that to your advantage. When you are spotting through a bush, make sure to go forward until it's transparent. Then you're going to be able to use the full extent of your view range, and when you want to fire at them, pull back until it's opaque. You can't see through it, and then you fire through the bush, and that way you are retaining all of your concealment, using all of the concealment bonus of the bush or the tree or whatever piece of foliage you're using. And that's how you use the bush mechanics. Apart from that, just keep an eye on your concealment ring around your tank in the minimap in the bottom right, which is the first dotted ring you'll see, and make sure that your enemies are within your view range cone that you'll see on the minimap. In terms of the consumables, I'm running the combat rations to further boost the gun handling, the view range, and everything about the tank, and I'm running large repair and large med kit. I do that because I'm not doing this to play silver, just to have a little bit of fun, and I definitely want to make sure that I'm not stuck out in the open, because like I said at the start of the video, 650 hit points don't go a long way. We're going to risk getting shot maybe 1 or 2 times now to get some extra damage in at the end of this battle, but you can see here that the view range we put out at the start, just those few rounds you're putting in, it doesn't really matter that you have a pretty poor DPM, as long as you are securing kills, getting shots in when you can. And the main thing about this tank is getting the view range for your team, lighten up the targets, and then you can help out your team by chasing down light tanks at the end of the battle. I'm just going to wait until he's in a direct line with me, and then I'm going to fire with the auto aim. That's the best way of firing on the move with this tank, because of the slightly slower shell velocity on the AP rounds, and the fact that you can't move your gun 15 degrees to the left from the right. I highly recommend not getting into a one-on-one fight with another light tank. Bait them into the open, bait them towards your teammates, and once they're taken out, you have free reign to go forward and use your camouflage and your view range to get the vision. And yeah, you should have a nice win rate and some pretty damn good games in this tank if you play it sensibly. Don't rush in, get yourself killed right away, and it's all about knowing when to go in with your gun, when to fire it, and it's just something that you do pick up over time. We now have a nice shell into the rear of this Jagdpanther. Just going to sit behind him, make it a little bit more awkward for him to turn around, and hopefully he will get taken out, and he does by our KV-85, and that's the end of the first battle there, with a fairly respectable damage total for a tier 6 French light tank. We pick up the first class mastery there, 1997 base experience points, showing you people are playing this tank extremely well. We pick up a profit, even though we fired some APCR rounds there, of 30,000 silver, and we got 3 kills, 2.9k direct damage, and 1393 assistance, showing you the power of the view range and camo of this tank. So that's it for the first gameplay. We're now going to head on into the second one, which is a pretty epic game. So then we're now into the second game here on Prokhorovka, and this is the map that I was waiting for. We're in a tier 6 battle, and hopefully I'm going to get a heck of a lot of assistance in this battle. It doesn't quite work out how I hoped, but we still have an epic game, but in a slightly different way, and you'll see why towards the sort of latter stages of this video. We're going to head towards the one line here on Prokhorovka with the great mobility, try and get a sort of good picture of where the enemies are going. We're going to just actively scout on this mid-ridge along this E line here on Prokhorovka and see if we can get some early assistance. We get, you know, a little bit early on. You don't get too much when you are in a kind of same tier matchmaking due to the fact that there isn't as much hit points going around, and this Leopard's only got 380 hit points. We're going to fire on the move. When you're firing on the move in this tank, as we saw in the last replay, you either wait for them to get in a direct line with you, or when you're free aiming, you free aim in front of them and you wait for them to enter your crosshairs and you fire slightly in front of them. And that's the best way you can fire with this limited gun traversed. It can be awkward, but you do get to grips with it, and that light tank gets taken out of the game. Now we're going to go back to this one line and see if we can push out the vision towards the south of this map. We're going to get set up in some bushes on the edge of the map, going as far towards the outer edges of this map as possible. Sit there for a second, see if we can get a shout on that super chaffee. And now we're going to go forward into these couple of bushes here. Go forward, spot this 3001H. I'm just testing out the view range of the enemy now, firing, seeing if I get spotted, which surprisingly, or unsurprisingly in this tank I should say, I actually don't get spotted. So that's very fortunate for us, and now we can just pop forward whenever we like, spot them out and fall back behind this bush, and then we can get shots in on these tanks that are in the centre of the map. There's not many tanks in the game, even at tier 6, that you can do this with the concealment, but this tank is definitely one of them. Its concealment is absolutely crazy. We're not getting spotted, as you can see, by the tanks that are around 400 meters away. And we're able to outspot them at that distance, which means we don't have to get into a dangerous advanced position. I'm just going to move slightly more forward because I know there's some shell tracers going towards the south, and hopefully I'm going to be able to spot out some people camping at the back here. There's a Brumbar, which is the dangerous big caliber gun at tier 6, which could severely cripple my hit points and make it very hard for me to take down the rest of this game. But I'm kind of confident now of pushing this line. We haven't got much assistance at all, although we have got a fairly substantial amount of vision. We've got 1.2k direct damage already, and if the games are slightly longer, slightly more drawn out, this gun can rack up the damage with that 240 alpha damage. It just takes a little bit of time, but the fact that you can fire with impunity from concealment does mean that it's a lot easier to use this gun, and we just rocked there so we didn't get spotted. Unfortunately, we went up again a little bit too soon and got spotted, so we're now going to just make a little bit of a retreat. However, we are still keeping the view range behind us, and hopefully we won't get tagged as we get re-stealthed, and then we're going to make a nice push down this one line again, hopefully clear out this one line, and then maybe we'll have enough time to flank the enemy that look like they will be taking the hill very shortly, as our teammates are all bundled around the bottom of it, and they've got every single rest of their team. It looks like every single member on that hill. This is low tank gameplay for you. It doesn't always work with the meta that you see when you're playing like tiers 8, 9 and 10, However, it can make for some interesting battles. So I'm going to get right down in the south now, go forward as quick as possible, use the outskirts of the map, then flank round and hopefully get some rear shots into the tanks that are situated towards the south but also towards the middle of the map. Get some vision on them, and then hopefully once we've cleared the centre area, we have the whole field to play with. So even if we do lose the hill, we can hopefully keep our distance, spot the enemies, and make sure we take this one down. And it's going to be a slightly longer battle than the last battle. However, I feel like it's worth watching for the rest of this battle if you are considering leaving at this moment, because it's going to be a pretty nice damage number for a tier 6 French light tank, especially one with horrific DPM. I'm going to play a very patient game here. I don't want to lose any hit points now because it's looking like it's going to be a very difficult one to take down. We are losing by one tank, but it looks like our teammates are in a very vulnerable position there at the bottom of that hill, and that artillery is in a position to get spotted when they push forwards to the north of the map. So I'm just going to retreat now. We're getting vision as we retreat on the tank destroyer behind us. And then when we get re-stealthed, we can use these bushes to get some damage in on him, take him out. And it's all about just being aware of your surroundings, being aware of where tanks were spotted. You always have to keep an eye on your view range cone and your still concealment circle to gauge whether you're going to outspot your opponents, to gauge whether you might get spotted with your next shot. And if you get spotted, you always want to have an exit plan in place. So we spot the Brumbar there. Now we're just going to pull back as far as I feel like I can before I can fire. We fire, take him out there. And that's the beauty of having a fairly high alpha damage at tier 6, especially for a light tank. At 240, it's very nice. It means that you can finish off low health targets. Unfortunately for us, the T150 takes out our Thunderbolt. We're going to get re-stealthed, and then it's all about rinsing and repeating, using all of these bushes, using the fantastic view range that we now have with our commander and equipment setup, and more importantly, the excellent concealment. We're going to go further back, get more bushes in front of us to retain our concealment, and we take out that T150. He doesn't have a chance at taking us down. That Cromwell B comes in at us, but we do take the chance when he's lined up in front of us of using auto aim to get that shell in there, take him out. And now it is 2 versus 4. Unfortunately for me, my friendly teammate is now towards the northeast of the map. He gets taken out as he's in the enemies that were advancing. And now it's a 1 versus 4 game. Unfortunately, we can't have the opportunity to go for the Kolobanov's medal 1 versus 5. However, taking a 1 versus 4 down would be very nice, and it's not turned out to be the game that I was expecting, as I was expecting it to be a very high assistance damage. It's turning into more of a showcase of this 90mm gun. So you've got the first replay in today's video showing you the sort of powers of the concealment in terms of getting the view range out, and now you're seeing the powers of the concealment when you come up against an end of game scenario when you're having to use your gun. I'm now firing APCR due to the fact I want more penetration to go through this KV2. Below his gun is a weak spot I might be able to penetrate, and we get a shot in there. And we're going to fall back off that ridgeline as we are getting capped, but also I don't want to let that KV2 blind fire me with my shell tracer, as he has the potential to one-shot me with his 152mm caliber cannon, which could absolutely wreck me and take me out of the game. So now we are going to use the concealment in the middle of this map to outspot this 3601H. He hasn't got a chance at shooting us. Every single time we shoot, we are going to make sure we move to a different location, just in case people are watching our shell tracers. We're going to take out this 3601H, then we're going to advance, spot where else is in the cap, and I'm so confident in this tank about spotting anything I come up against, even other light tanks, that I'm very confident at advancing. And you have that mobility and that low profile nature to get out of harm's way if you really need to. And now we have to just remember that KV2 was on the hill, so we're going to go from a slightly different angle in at this KV2 after we don't spot him here on the train tracks, and we're just going to have to keep the opponents guessing at where we're going to be coming from, and we should be able to take this one down nice and easily. We have the view range and the concealment to outspot the artillery and the heavy tank. It's just about not making a misplay. Fortunately for us, we spot the grill on the top of the hill there. It looks like he doesn't know that he's spotted. Maybe he's not using sixth sense. And with that nice alpha damage, we do take him out. So it's just the KV-2 left. And now we're going to make our way from the south of the map up on top of the hill and see if we can spot this KV-2. I am expecting the KV-2 to be in that little nook which is situated in E0, just waiting for me to advance from the north. So we're going to come from the south of this map up the 0 line, and then hopefully we can get a shot or two into him and take him out of this game. And this is just demonstrating the immense power of this tank with the concealment rating. And if you do set it up correctly and it's got a good commander in it, you should be golden in this tank. You should have a lot of nice games, and it's very powerful indeed. It's a lot of fun to play, and it does remind me of how the AMX ELC BIS used to be. So that KV-2 is situated where I thought he was. This gun depression is causing me a bit of issue there. We take a bit of a chance there as we rock forward, get a snapshot into him, and he only just misses us, which means that we have the time to reload and take him out. And as I was waiting for the victory screen, oh yeah, the game broke. I was stuck in this battle for quite some time. I didn't manage to get the end of screen results. I had to restart the game numerous times, but as you can see, we picked up there 9 kills, 251 assistance and 4.9k direct damage, showing you how good this tank is. So I hope that you've enjoyed watching today's video. That's proof that I actually had a good game in this tank. No one could tell me otherwise. But yeah, we didn't get the victory screen. But thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you on the battle, and bye for now.